2 Samuel chapter 15, titled Absalom Revolts. This is lesson 21. We talked a little bit at the end of last lesson about Absalom and his beauty and how he used that to his advantage. And we'll continue to see that here. He's a strikingly handsome young man. Okay? Other men may have looked up to him or even been jealous of his physical outward beauty. And the women may have looked up to him and thought, now that's a handsome young man. But what we fail to see is the heart. Absalom's heart wasn't necessarily that godly. It was self-centered. It was focused on himself. So although he was pleasant and nice, he's kind of like a politician. He had the gift to make someone feel welcome in his presence. He had the gift to make them feel important in his presence. He's able to look right into their eyes and as though it were talk to their hearts. So he had that gift. He was beautiful. He was wise in the sense that he knew how to speak to people. It was easy to get along with. He made friends easily. So we'll see how that plays into the lesson today. So 2 Samuel chapter 15, starting at verse 1. And it came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early, stood beside the way of the gate, and it was so that when any man had a controversy, came to the king for judgment, that Absalom called unto him and said, Of what city art thou? And he said, Thy servant is of one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said unto him, See, thy matters are good and right, but there is no man disputed of the king to hear thee. Absalom said moreover, Oh, that I were made a judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come to me, and I would do him justice. And it was so, that when any man came nigh to him to do obeisance, he put forth his hand and took him and kissed him. And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. So Absalom, remember, he had been banished for a while. He'd been outside the city, been banished. Now he's back in the city and he's been here a while. He's greeted his father. He feels more comfortable to go out and about and to now do things in the city without retribution for the murder of his brother. So Absalom decides, and he knows in his mind, he has a plan. He desires to be the king. He sees his father and he probably thinks, well, I'm much wiser than my father. How many of us oftentimes think that? I'm wiser than my father. I'm wiser than my mother. They don't know what they're talking about. I know what the right thing to do is. They should listen to me. Or, I know I can do these things and I can do them better. Imagine if we were thinking we were wiser even than Solomon. To say, well, Solomon, he couldn't handle those things, but I can. I can handle these things. It's foolishness to think we're wiser than our parents or others in authority. But that's what Absalom thought here. And when he would go now out into the city, he wanted to make it a big show, as though it were almost a parade, a presentation. We read there that he would have 50 men run in front of his chariot. This would help get the attention of the people so that by the time Absalom came around the corner, everyone knew, oh, this is Absalom. Hey, look over here. Young boys and young girls would tap each other. Absalom's coming, quick, let's get a good view. Or, Mom or Dad, look who's coming, it's Absalom. Just like you guys too, you're driving down the road and you see something out the window. Hey, everybody look over here. This is interesting, this is neat. Or maybe out in the field by your house, the combine comes. You say, hey everyone, come look. Well, that's what it was like with Absalom here. He drew attention to himself. Where would he end up? He'd end up in the gates, at the gate of the king's palace. That's where many of the wise men and judges and other people would come together to rule there or to talk. But this is what Absalom had going for him. He didn't just stay in his chariot and thumb his nose at everybody and, look at all you poor, scuzzy people. No. Absalom got down out of his chariot and he went up to each person and maybe shook their hands or would reach out and touch them or talk to them. And he wanted to find out, what are your needs? What are your cares? How can I do this? And he'd make that personal contact with them so that they all felt as though he cared about them personally. They didn't know that they were being used by Absalom to get on his side so that he could get his way later on. But he flattered them. He charmed them. He made them feel welcome. It was, again, as he could speak to their hearts. So, Absalom sets up each day here in the gate. And people would be coming through. Many of them would be coming because they wanted to present to the king a problem, a difficulty that they had, that the king needed to judge and take care of. And Absalom would call them over and say, "Hey, ho, where are you from? Oh, you're from way up there from the tribe of Zebulun. Or, oh, you're from Manasseh and you've come to present something to the king. Well, why don't you come over here? We can help you with that." You see, the king doesn't even have anybody here to help you with your problems. That's why I, Absalom, the son of the king, am here. I can help you do that. And so he kind of took over in the place of all these other wise men who were sitting. He kind of took over. And he would show interest in anyone coming through because he wanted all of them to be on his side. And so he was there early in the morning and he would show them how concerned he was. Well, that's your problem? That is a bad problem. Let's see what we can do to solve this problem. What can we do to figure it out? How can we help you? He made them feel welcome. What you're asking is an important question. That's a good need. And boy, isn't it so bad that not one of the king's men are here to help hear this, but I will hear it. Okay? And then Absalom did what most politicians do. They promise everything. Oh, you don't have that? I will do everything I can to make sure that happens. You need that problem solved? I will go in there and I will do anything I can to solve the problem. I will solve your problem. Why don't we do this or this or this? And he'd make all these promises that he knew he wouldn't be able to keep. But he did it anyways because he was trying to impress the people. Would that even be possible? No, we see all the politicians today. They promise everything. Candidate Trump says he'll do all these things when he becomes president. Candidate Clinton says she'll all do all these things. And the fact of the matter is, very few of those things will actually be able to be delivered. It's going to be pretty difficult to be delivered. But that's what Absalom would brag. And Absalom he didn't want other people to feel little in front of him. He didn't want other people to feel insignificant. So it was typical. Well, this is the king's son. This is a prince. This is a man who may be the king someday. So many of these people who would come in would bow down before him. And he'd say, no, stand up. You don't have to bow before me. We're equals. We're brothers and sisters here. We're equals. I'm no better than you. And in the end, he was able to steal their hearts. He was very clever. Because he knew his father was getting older. His father was weary up there. And his father probably would tell these people he didn't have time for them. Or he couldn't see all these people one day. So Absalom was doing this, trying to impress the hearts of the people so that later on they will follow him. Follow along in verse 7 then. What was the result of all of this that Absalom did? And it came to pass after 40 years, that might be a mistake, that might be something more like 4 years, because David only reigned 40 years. But after 40 years, that Absalom said unto the king, I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow which I have vowed unto the Lord in Hebron. For thy servant vowed a vow while I abode at Geshur in Syria, saying, if the Lord shall bring me again indeed to Jerusalem, and I will serve the Lord again. And the king said unto him, go in peace. So he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the land, tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called. And they went in their simplicity, and they knew not anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor, from his city, even from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. So Absalom requests of his father, Father, may I go to Hebron? Because he still felt a bit restricted about where he could go. But you see, Hebron used to be an important city. He was born there, so most of the people would like to have him as their king, because everyone likes the king or the president or the ruler to come from their hometown. Wouldn't that be fantastic for the people of Hebron? The king would be from Hebron. So if Absalom becomes king, it makes their city an important city. Maybe they'll get benefits and favors. Maybe they'll get money and stuff. So they like the idea. The other reason is Ahithophel is nearby there. He lives near Hebron. Okay? So Absalom gets permission from his father. He goes. He takes some people with him. We see there's 200 people who were innocent. They didn't even have a clue what was going on. They didn't know about this conspiracy. But Absalom did send out some men to be spies. Go into all the land. Find out what the people... Take a little poll. Why is he... do you think Absalom will make a good king after David is gone? And who do you think should be the next king? Or what would your opinion be if Absalom became king here in the next couple of months? And, well, what they want to hear is a positive report. If they're getting enough positive reports, then Absalom knows he will be supported by the king or by the people. And so he sends the spies out. And if maybe someone's on the fence, and they don't quite know, are you for this man or are you against this man? Do you think this is a good idea or do you think it's a bad idea? And because they're on the fence, then what they'll do is they can maybe try to persuade them. Well, look at the things that this man will be able to do for you. How he'll be able to help you out. Okay? And then the ones that are convinced, he says, when you hear the sound of a trumpet going forth in all the land, we want you to say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. Okay? Celebrate the new king, which is in Hebron. So, Absalom finally, and one last thing that he does is he sends for Ahithophel. Ahithophel was the right-hand counselor of David. He'd been with David through thick and thin, through all the problems that David had before. Absalom is able to convince Ahithophel. Ahithophel, come to me. So this gives us an idea about the heart of Ahithophel. Ahithophel is looking out for himself. Well, let's see. David is king, and I like working for him because it gets me all kinds of benefits. But if Absalom is going to become king, or if Absalom is going to start a civil war with David, you know that Ahithophel was thinking in his mind, who's going to win? Whose side do I want to be on? The old, kind of getting old King David, who's not as strong, doesn't have stamina, or this young man, Absalom, the son of the king anyways, who's a prince, and who's, well, look at his stature, look at his beauty, and everyone loves him. Who shall I pick? And Ahithophel decides to go with Absalom. And he sticks with Absalom. So, a trumpet sounds, and all the people shout, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. At least the ones for him. And Absalom's revolt is made public. And a messenger sprints from Hebron back to David in Jerusalem and tells David, Absalom, your son, he's made himself king, David, over you. And the people are rejoicing and shouting in the streets. Well, David knows what this means. Civil war. A revolt. His son has revolted and led many people against him. Now, David could hunker down in the city. David could close up the gates of the city of Jerusalem and be ready for battle. But there's a problem. David has found out that Ahithophel has gone. And if Ahithophel, his right-hand man, could have possibly gone with Absalom, well, who else in his palace and in the city might also be with Absalom? You see, if they could get to King David, they might kill King David and do themselves a favor and get a lot of honor with Absalom. So David knows that staying in Jerusalem would be a bad idea. He needs to escape and run because anybody who runs with him is going to be on David's side. You see, everyone else who's on Absalom's side will want to stay behind in Jerusalem. So David flees. He leaves the city. He doesn't take everybody with him. We read that he left some concubines behind in his house. But he took the 600 men who had always been his faithful companions, even when he had been fighting against Saul. Those men were faithful to him. They come, and other men come with him, bodyguards and other servants. They all go with David, and they leave Jerusalem. The ones that are left behind, obviously, are probably ones who are for Absalom. But they had to leave very quickly. I'm going to skip ahead to verse 19 here of 2 Samuel chapter 15. Verse 19 there. Where is it? There we are. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, Wherefore goest thou also with us? Return to thy place, and abide with the king, for thou art a stranger, also an exile. Wherefore thou camest but yesterday? Should I this day make thee go up and down with us, seeing I go whither I may? Return thou, and take back thy brethren. Mercy and truth be with thee. You see, Ittai the Gittite was a new convert. He had come out from a heathen land and was with David. So David's telling him, Ittai, you don't need to come with us. You're a fresh new convert. They would not make a connection and think that you are on my side. Therefore, if you're with us, you have a greater chance of dying with us if we're captured or killed by Absalom. You stay behind in Jerusalem. You're a new convert. There's no sense for you to have to run with us. I want to focus on Ittai's answer. It's beautiful. Right? Verse 21, and Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord liveth, and as my lord the king liveth, surely in what place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or in life, even there also will thy servant be. And David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. Ittai the Gittite passed over, and all his men and all the little ones that were with him. All the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. So Ittai with a beautiful answer. David, I want to be with you because the Lord is with you. If I stay back in Jerusalem, yes, I may have Absalom as the ruler, but he's godless. He doesn't have God with him. David, if you die, I want to die with you. God is with you, David, and so I'm going to be with you too. That's a beautiful statement. That's a statement that we ought to always be prepared to make. We are with the Lord. That's whose side I am on. Not something that gains me any earthly benefit, but I will be on the side of the Lord. And so we see there the weeping as the people passed over the brook Kidron on the other side out into the wilderness. Now some other men came along too. Verse 24, and Zadok also and the Levites were with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar went up until all the people had done passing out of the city. And the king said unto Zadok, Carry back the ark of the God into the city. If I shall find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. And then, well, we'll stop there. So David tells Zadok, Look, we applaud you for bringing the ark. God is with us. But God's city is Jerusalem. The ark shouldn't be out roaming around with us for it to be lost somewhere or if we're captured. Leave the ark in Jerusalem. If it's God's will that I return, then it will be there for me when I return. If it's not God's will when I return, well, at least it will be in its rightful place for the rest of the people of Israel. But out here we could lose it. It could be destroyed. Leave it in Jerusalem. So Zadok was told to carry it back, but then David wisely tells the priest some things too. Verse 28. See, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness until there come word from you to certify me. Zadok therefore and Abiathar carried the ark of God to Jerusalem, and they tarried there. Oops, I skipped verse 27, sorry. The king said also unto Zadok the priest, Art thou not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz thy son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. See, David is planning ahead. These 2 young men could be used to his advantage in the future. They're on his side. But why doesn't the high priest go back and take these young men with him? That way, in case David needs to use them in the future, they can do that. They can be to his advantage. So it's as though they themselves are being some spies. All right, and then the end here of this chapter and this lesson, verse 30. And David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet and wept as he went up, and his head was covered, and he went barefoot. And all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went up. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. It came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount where he worshipped God, behold, Hushai, the Archite, came to meet with him with his coat rent, and rested in earth upon his head, unto whom David said, If thou passest on with me, then thou shalt be a burden unto me. But if thou return into the city, say to Absalom, I will be thy servant, O king, as I have been thy father's servant. Hitherto, so will I now be thy servant. Then mayest thou for me defeat the counsel of Ahithophel, Hast thou not there with thee Zadok and Abiathar the priests? Therefore it shall be that what things soever thou shalt hear out of the king's house, thou shalt tell it to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, they have there with them their two sons, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And by them ye shall send unto me everything that ye can hear. So Hushai, David's friend, came into the city. Absalom came into Jerusalem. So in addition to these two young men on his side, David has one other wise man, Hushai. He's an old man. He's a counselor of David. David realizes he has an opportunity here. He tells Hushai, look, Hushai, you're old. You don't need to be out here running around with us. And on top of that, I need you to do something for me. Absalom, he can win the hearts of the people, but he needs wise counsel. And he's going to depend on wise men. You know, so just like you know your brothers and sisters and their personalities, you know your parents know your personality and those things as well. David knows his son Absalom's person. He's going to lean heavily on the wise men. So David tells Hushai, look! Hushai, look! Now that I've fled out of the city of Jerusalem, Absalom's going to leave Hebron and he's going to come there because he's going to want the palace. When he comes, I want you to pretend as though you were on his side. He'll think, oh, David fled and Hushai stayed behind. He must not be on the side of my father. He's here to be on my side. And Hushai, Absalom, my son, is going to ask for Ahithophel's advice, but he may also ask your advice. I want you to give advice that is the opposite of Ahithophel. Ahithophel will give wise advice to Absalom and tell him how to defeat me. I want you to give bad advice to Absalom. Give him bad advice against Ahithophel and turn Absalom's heart so that he agrees with you and listens to your bad advice. And that way God will watch over me. And know this, Hushai, in the city you will find Zadok and Abiathar, the priests. They have two sons with them. They are on our side as well. So you aren't in the city all by yourself, Hushai. Zadok and Abiathar and their sons are also on my side. And you can use their sons. You see, they'll keep a close eye on Zadok and they'll keep a close eye on Abiathar because they're priests and they know that they're probably on my side, but they didn't leave the temple. But they won't keep a close eye on those two sons of theirs. That's, if you need to get a message to me, those are the young men that you should use. Allow those young men to sneak out of the city and come unto me. So Ahimaaz and Jonathan will be used in that way. So Hushai probably arrives to the city just a little bit before Absalom, or maybe even at the same time, but they get there so that Absalom now think he's the new ruler of all of Israel. He's taken the city, and he's in a civil war with his father and his father's army. Now I asked one last question there. Who is Ahithophel a picture of? Ahithophel is the Old Testament picture of what? David was a picture of Christ. So who would Ahithophel be a picture of in the New Testament?
Judas Iscariot.
Right, Judas. Ahithophel is a wise man who pretends to be on the king's side, but he really isn't. He's really on whosever side it benefits him. Right? He could have stayed with King David, but instead he went to Absalom because he felt that he would have a better opportunity with Absalom. Judas is the same way. He could stick with Jesus, but he thinks Jesus is old and no good anyways, so he goes and gets some money out of it anyways. He thinks, oh, I got to make some buck out of this. So Ahithophel is the Old Testament picture of Jesus. So just as Ahithophel or Judas. Ahithophel is a picture of Judas. David, we know, is a beautiful picture of Jesus.